The Indiana Fever fans erupted in chants of "Sophie, Sophie," while Caitlin Clark was repeatedly hacked on the court, with the refs doing nothing to stop it. The fans screamed, "Do something!" And Sophie Cunningham, understanding the assignment, didn't hesitate. She took the ball coast to coast, and in that single moment, something changed. Sophie didn't just send a message to JCS Sheldon or the Connecticut Sun. She sent a message to the entire WNBA. "Don't mess with Caitlin Clark." That was the statement Sophie made, and it was loud and clear. Teams will think twice about going after Caitlin Clark again. While fans had been absolutely frustrated by the lack of repercussions for the fouls against Caitlin, they finally got what they'd been hoping for: an enforcer. Sophie Cunningham stepped up as a protector, someone unafraid to send a bold message. From the ashes of poor officiating, a star was born. Sophie didn't just defend her teammate. She lit a spark that could very well change the entire tone of the Fever's season. It may feel early to say it, but Sophie Cunningham is now a household name in the sports world. People couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Fans were asking, "Who is this player coming to Caitlin's defense?" And then it hit them. Sophie Cunningham was not only a fierce competitor, but she was also a black belt at the age of 6. Yeah, you heard that right. Fast forward just 48 hours and Sophie's name is everywhere. The clips are going viral, fans are fired up. The energy has completely shifted. This is no longer just the Fever versus the league. This is Caitlin versus the world, and Sophie is her undisputed bodyguard. And here's the kicker: that one moment could make Sophie millions. It's no exaggeration. The signs are already there. But before we dive into how Sophie's stock is skyrocketing, like this video, drop a boxing glove in the comments if you appreciated Sophie stepping up, and make sure to subscribe for more WNBA updates. The larger problem with the officiating. The thing is, this isn't just a one-time issue. All season long, we've seen this kind of treatment, and when you allow the physicality to escalate like this, it's no surprise the players start standing up for each other. Caitlin Clark has been one of the best in the league, and when you let teams go after her like this, the Fever's teammates are going to respond. This wasn't just a bad call. It was part of a larger issue with the officiating that's been lingering in the WNBA for years. The Fever's game against the Sun was a new low for the league. The officiating has been a topic of criticism for as long as anyone can remember. Kelsey Plum was even in tears recently, praying for things to improve. But what happened against the Sun? It made it painfully clear. Caitlin Clark is being targeted, and the refs are letting it happen. Take a look at this moment when Caitlin tries to create space. She was hit in the eye. The refs missed that call, too. JCS Sheldon went right for Caitlin's face, literally going after the face of the league. And then, in the chaos that followed, Marina Mabrey body-checked Caitlin to the floor. It was as if there were two players, Dane Carrington and Kennedy Carter, who cloned themselves and re-entered the game as a tag team. The WNBA's response, or lack thereof. In real time, it was clear this wasn't just a physical play. The body check was blatant, and it would have been flagged instantly in the NBA. But in the WNBA, it was treated like just another day at the office. Fans were frustrated, and even though Lexi had a brief confrontation with JCS Sheldon, there was very little pushback on the court. The one person who could have really made a statement was head coach Stephanie White, and while she absolutely redeemed herself in the press conference, fans were hoping for more in the moment. They were begging for her to go full Bobby Knight and throw a chair. Let's be honest, that would have made for an incredible visual, given Knight's history with Indiana. Now let's talk about the real elephant in the room. If this were LeBron or Steph Curry in the NBA, would this be allowed? Absolutely not. If someone went after LeBron, do you think the NBA would just slap on a technical foul and call it a day? No. The NBA wouldn't let anyone get away with that kind of treatment of its biggest stars. Yet that's exactly what happened to Caitlin Clark. The commentators were stunned that Marina wasn't ejected for that body check. Caitlin Clark is more important to the WNBA than Steph or LeBron are to the NBA. And that's not just a hot take. It's the truth. When Caitlin was sidelined for 5 games, the ratings tanked. Fever games were down over 50%. The entire league took a massive hit. Caitlin Clark brings in millions of extra viewers. You'd think there'd be some directive from the league to protect its superstar, but instead, the refs are just letting things slide. The fallout from the poor officiating. This wasn't just a missed call. This was a massive failure to protect the league's most valuable asset. And as a result, the WNBA is feeling the heat. Social media is blowing up with criticism of the refs, the league, and the treatment of Caitlin Clark, and not in a good way. The entire situation is setting the WNBA on fire, and not in the way they'd hoped. Despite the Fever cruising to what should have been a solid win, Caitlin's treatment on the court overshadowed it all. Sophie Cunningham, however, stepped up when no one else would. She became the protector that Caitlin needed and showed the world exactly what she's capable of. The night had already been electrified with Caitlin Clark's epic three-pointer and her bold trash talk to the Suns bench, but something still felt unfinished. The game was coming to a close, but it didn't feel resolved. There was an emptiness, like the message hadn't been sent. Then Sophie Cunningham stepped up, and everything changed. That was a flagrant foul, a hard foul. With the game in hand, Sophie didn't hesitate. She dropped J.C. Sheldon with a vicious foul, then immediately put her taekwondo training to good use. It was cathartic. For Fever fans, WNBA fans, and Caitlin Clark supporters, everyone who had been frustrated by how Clark had been treated finally got the pushback they had been begging for. But this moment went deeper than just one play. It wasn't just about J.C. Sheldon. Sophie was fighting back for weeks of cheap shots, missed calls, and disrespect, sending a message on behalf of every fan who had seen the refs turn a blind eye. It wasn't just a foul, it was payback. And I truly believe that this was Sophie sending a message not only to the players and teams, but to the entire league and the officiating. Anyone watching these games can see that there's a clear disparity in how the league is officiated. The Indiana Fever are held to a standard no other team is subjected to. This moment against the Sun feels like a turning point for the league. Maybe the WNBA will finally take a hard look at its officiating issues. But what happened that night? A blatant face swipe followed by a body check on the league's biggest star was a step too far. Enough is enough. The line was crossed too many times, and it was time for something to be done. The league can't let this slide anymore. There are two major outcomes from that game, and both are significant. First, Caitlin Clark's fans have been growing increasingly frustrated. For over a year, they've been belittled by the media, told they weren't real basketball fans, and subjected to outright disrespect, all while they were the ones filling arenas and boosting viewership. Now, after seeing Caitlin take a hit to the face and be body-checked to the ground with zero repercussions, that frustration has turned into full-blown outrage. The league has been handed a miracle, Caitlin Clark, a beacon of hope when the WNBA was struggling. Yet there seems to be this underlying jealousy from some players and even parts of the league. Fans have reached a point where it genuinely feels like the WNBA doesn't want Caitlin to succeed. And when fans feel this way, something shifts. They start rooting for Caitlin to keep dominating, but they also secretly hope the league falls apart without her. If the WNBA isn't going to protect or promote Caitlin, why should her fans stick around for anything else? It's a toxic dynamic that divides the fan base, isolates the league's biggest star, and hinders long-term growth. And then there's this petition calling for Sophie Cunningham's removal from the WNBA, claiming her actions were disgusting. Now, while you might dismiss this as internet noise, let's take a moment to see what's really happening here. There are fans, not just trolls, who are seriously calling for Sophie's removal and even for the WNBA to relocate the All-Star game out of Indianapolis. Some are going as far as to encourage boycotts. What's even more ironic is looking back at how things played out a few months ago. Anti-Caitlin Clark fans were quick to defend Kiki Fenn in a preseason game against the Mystics when Sophie was taken to the ground hard. In fact, they celebrated it. Now, those same voices are crying foul, calling for Sophie to be punished for her actions in defense of Clark. It's a double standard at its finest. Even worse, some people are outright encouraging violence against Sophie Cunningham. These are the same fans who criticize other fan bases for being the worst in the league, yet they're promoting actual harm toward a player. It feels like there's a certain group within the league and its fan base who can't emotionally handle Caitlin Clark leading the charge. And it's not just Caitlin. It extends to anyone who supports, plays with, or defends her. Look at what happened after the Sky game when Caitlin fouled Angel Reese. The backlash didn't just fall on Caitlin. Fever players and fans were attacked, their toughness and character questioned, simply because they didn't retaliate in the way some fans expected. This isn't just sports banter. This is something deeper. It's as if anyone associated with Caitlin Clark becomes a target. It's not just Caitlin and her teammates. It's everyone who stands with her. The treatment of Kelsey Mitchell, Natasha Howard, and others is absolutely wild. Fans have taken photos of these women, circling them in a way that dehumanizes them. It's a sad state of affairs when this is the reality for the WNBA's biggest stars. The night had already been filled with excitement after Caitlin Clark nailed an epic three-pointer and delivered some cold-blooded trash talk to the Suns bench. But there was still something missing. It didn't feel finished, settled. It was like the game was over, but the message hadn't been fully sent. That's when Sophie Cunningham stepped in. With the game in hand, Sophie dropped J.C. Sheldon with a hard foul. And just as quickly, she turned her taekwondo training into action. It was pure catharsis. Fever fans, WNBA fans, Caitlin Clark fans, anyone who had grown tired of how Clark had been treated finally got the pushback they'd been craving. But it wasn't just about one play. It was so much deeper than that. It felt like Sophie was fighting back on behalf of every fan who had seen weeks of cheap shots, missed calls, and disrespect. She wasn't just sending a message to J.C. Sheldon, she was sending a broader message to the league, the officials, and everyone who had watched this unfold. It wasn't just a foul, it was payback. And in that moment, Sophie wasn't just defending her teammate, she was calling out the disparity in how games are officiated. Anyone watching could see the inequality, how the Indiana Fever are held to a standard that no other team faces. Sophie's actions were a wake-up call to the league. What happened against the Sun felt like a turning point for the WNBA. Maybe, just maybe, this will push the league to take a long, hard look at its officiating issues. But the real issue here wasn't just the missed calls, it was the blatant disregard for consequences. A full-on face swipe followed by a body check on the league's biggest star was a step too far. It was time for change. There are two major takeaways from this game, and both are huge. On one hand, Caitlin Clark's fans, who had already been frustrated, are now in full-blown outrage. For over a year, they've been belittled, told they weren't real basketball fans, and even attacked with horrible comments, despite literally filling arenas and driving skyrocketing viewership. And after watching Caitlin get hit across the face and body checked to the floor with no consequences, that frustration has now boiled over into full-blown outrage. The league had a miracle handed to them, Caitlin Clark, a beacon of hope while the WNBA was floundering. Yet all the while, players have been jealous, and the league has made it clear they don't want Caitlin's success. Fans are beginning to feel like the league doesn't want her to succeed, and when that happens, things shift. Fans begin to root for two things: Caitlin Clark to keep dominating and the league to fail without her. Because if the league isn't going to protect or promote her, why should her fans stick around for anything else? It's a toxic dynamic. It divides the fan base, isolates the league's biggest star, and damages the league's long-term growth. Now let's talk about the petition to get Sophie Cunningham removed from the WNBA. Some people out there are demanding she be kicked out of the league and even calling for the All-Star game to be moved out of Indianapolis. They're calling for boycotts. This might sound like internet noise, but it's not just that. Some parts of the fandom are genuinely losing it over Sophie's actions. They're calling for her to be punished for defending Caitlin, and it's ridiculous. What's even more hypocritical is when you look back a few months. Anti-Caitlin Clark fans were perfectly fine when Kiki Fenn took Sophie Cunningham down hard in a preseason game. They defended the takedown, celebrated it, and encouraged even more aggression. Now those same voices are up in arms, claiming that Sophie deserves punishment for standing up for her teammate. And then there's the dangerous part. Some people are literally encouraging violence against Sophie Cunningham. These same individuals are the ones who criticize other fan bases, yet they're encouraging actual harm toward a player. This is a disturbing trend. It feels like there's a portion of the league and its fan base that simply can't handle Caitlin Clark leading the way. And it's not just Caitlin. It extends to anyone who supports her, plays with her, or defends her on the court. After the Sky game, when Caitlin fouled Angel Reese, the outrage didn't stop with Caitlin. Fever players were attacked too, simply because they didn't retaliate in the way some fans expected. It's deeper than just sports talk. Being associated with Caitlin Clark in any way makes you a target. Once again, it's Caitlin Clark and her teammates against the world. The comments being directed at them are wild, and the things being said to Kelsey Mitchell, Natasha Howard, and others are completely out of line. These women have been targeted and demonized in ways that are hard to even comprehend. It's a shame that, in the end, standing up for a teammate and doing what's right is still met with such hostility and toxic behavior. Ask ChatGPT.